as part of the film studies course that I teach to my students, they're required to complete a short 5 minute or page screenplay that reflects either the opening scene or a scene that creates excitement from a feature film of their own idea. So I thought we'd kick off with a couple of questions on screenwriting. The interesting thing that doing my research and picking apart the Power Rangers film is that you have two credits on the Power Rangers film. You have a story by credit alongside John Camps and a solo screenwriting credit. So I wanted to kind of separate the two for a second. What goes into a story by credit?
So what that's about is, and it was an interesting one with Power Rangers, is the way it was written. So initially they had the series and it was very hot, and they the Saban, Chaim Saban wanted to do a feature. So he looked at all the studios and he set up a deal with 20th Century Fox. Then they said, okay, now we got to find a writer. So because it was such a successful series, they decided, and they really wanted to get it going quickly. It was like, you want to, let's use this heat that we've got. They went out to 9 different writers, and we all had to, and I think that was actually for free. There was, it was just, which happens all the time now. 9 different writers to come up with a pitch for the movie. Okay. So I was one of the 9 writers, and it was one of these things where, we went to Shuki Levy's house. He was one of the producers also, and it was Chris Meledandre, who was the Fox executive, was there, and Suzanne Todd, who was the producer, and Chaim Saban. There was like about 10 people in the room, and you had to sort of wait in the car because this writer was coming out, and then you went in for your 15 minutes, and then the next writer was right behind you in their 15 minutes. So of all the pitches, they ended up hiring 3 writers, and I was one of the 3 writers. And so then I got paid to write. We all got paid to write scripts. We didn't get paid great money, but it was decent. And then from there, they picked the script they wanted to do. Unfortunately, they didn't pick my script, so it was devastating. It was like, I mean, first of all, it was so exciting. It was so exciting to get called in on this because it was such a big, show and all that kind of stuff. And then to get to be one of the 3 was fantastic. And I felt that the script, I felt really good about the script, but they just said, yeah, no, we decided to go with John Camp's script.
Okay.
And so then I didn't hear anything for 6 months. Then I got a call back, and they're like, okay, so what we did is we ended up using your script and John Camp's script and merging them. They really liked, in John Camp's script, they really liked the antagonist, the Ivan Ooze character. In my script, they really liked the whole sort of the plot, basically. The outer space, taking it out of the village, out of the town, and going into this space adventure.
Yeah.
So they said, do you want to come in and it's kind of a mess now, but do you want to come in and rewrite it for us? And do I want to come in? So zoom in, and then I was working with Brian Spicer. By that time, Brian Spicer had been hired, so he and I worked together for like really intensely for like a week. We were doing like 20-hour days, that kind of stuff, to get the script to a point where it would get green lit, basically. And then we still did a lot more work after that. So, and then in arbitration, which happens, so after everything's been shot and made and you can see the movie, when there's a bunch of different writers on a script, then it'll go into arbitration. So then the Writers Guild has, and this is one of the things that it's a voluntary thing, and I've done it myself. You'll have a panel of 3 writers that the Writers Guild will have that will read all the scripts, and they will decide who gets credit. Right. And depending on the amount of work you've done. So in this situation, it was story by, it was
story by you
John,
and John Camps.
John Camps, you're right. So that was the thing, is that he, there were still some structural things. There were still we ended up changing Ivan Ooze quite a bit, but there was, the essence of Ivan Ooze stayed. And then, so he shared with the story, but the screenplay really was, I mean, by the time we finished it, I don't think there was any lines. Maybe there was a few lines of his left in the screenplay. So then I got credits, screenplay credit. So yeah, that's sort of how it works. It was
that's interesting.
Unusual one. It was like to have that many people. And then not only that, while it was being shot, Chris Meledandri would have other writers come in and like bring in jokes and bring in lines and that kind of stuff.
Right.
And then in post-production, because they were masks, it was really easy to, in all those action scenes, it was really easy just to dub in new lines. So, you know, I would add in new lines. Everybody and his grandmother would add in new lines. Plus, they would once in a while bring in another writer for like a day or two. Just watch the movie. You know, where's a funny line, or where's a, you know, what can you add here? So there are lines in there from other writers as well. But because they only participated a little bit, they don't get any credit. They get paid. You know, who knows what they get paid, but but no credit. Yeah.
All right. So did you work for Fox, or were you kind of freelance at that time?
I was freelance. Yeah. The reason I got into it was I sold a spec script called Cop and a Half, which was a kid and a cop. So it got me into that sort of family vein. My very first movie that I got made was a movie called Red Scorpion. So I was known as an action director or action writer. But then when I sold Cop and a Half, I was known as a family guy. Cop and a Half, I don't know if it had come out by that time. It might have, but I wrote another script that Chris Meledandri, who was the Fox executive, read and really liked. And I think I got the job based on that script. And it was a script that ended up getting rewritten and made as a TV movie. It wasn't great in the end, but the script was one of my better scripts that I'd written. So it's one of those interesting things where you know, people go, okay, you write these scripts and they don't get made or whatever. Sometimes you don't get them sold. Like it got made years later. So sometimes the script won't get sold, but the writing will bring you a job. It's like, okay, this writing is really great. You know, I don't want to make this movie, but you know, I want you to pitch on this thing, or I want you to, you know, do this job for me, or rewrite this thing.
Yeah, so it's like getting your foot in the door, essentially, and then
absolutely. So it feels like it's not wasted. A lot of times you write a lot. I've written like so many scripts, you know, like probably 1 out of 10 of my scripts have been made, or 1 out of 15 of them have been made. And it feels like it's a waste of time, but it's not. You're always learning more and growing as a writer. And then also some of these scripts actually they like the last script I had made was a movie with John Cusack and Christina Ricci, and it was like 12 years old, a 12-year-old script. Is your house haunted?
Did you? That just frightened the life out of me. Did you hear that?
I did.
I think a bird has just flown at my window.
Oh no! I just watched. What is it? Unfriended. I don't know if you've seen that horror movie. I love those. I love horror movies. Yeah. Will you tell me? Wow. I'll keep my eye on you here to make sure that you don't suddenly get sucked away.
I thought, what on earth was that? Because I mean, I assumed my daughter had thrown something, but she's only 5. She can't throw something that high. Jeez, right.
That's funny.
Oh wow. Okay. Just to go back to what you were talking about with Cop and a Half. So you wrote a spec script for that. What exactly goes into a spec script?
Yeah. I say that again.
So what exactly goes into a spec script?
Oh, spec script just means you write it on spec, so you're on speculation. So you're just writing it yourself, and then your agent or you or a producer gets interested in it or whatever, tries to sell it. So
okay.
Yeah. And
so there's no studio looking for a specific thing. You're just
No, you're just writing on your own. And in today's world, really everything is pretty much spec, unless you're a huge writer. Back then, there was a lot more money people would be paid to develop things a lot more. So you could come in. You know, I sold a pitch one time where it was just I went into Universal with an idea, and they paid me to write the script based on a 15-minute pitch. But nowadays, unless you're, you know, the writer who just wrote Free Guy, whatever, the latest, you know, X-Men movies, it's very difficult to get those kinds of gigs.
So you mentioned that the Ivan character had come from John's side of the script. What elements had come from your side?
Pretty much the rest of it. I mean, the whole, pretty much the whole story. Like it was really, it was more. They said we like this ooze, the fact that he's oozy and all that kind of stuff. But in terms of the whole thing of Zordon, getting attacked and the whole thing collapsing, and then they have to go off to this other planet, and all the other elements. It's pretty much
the whole Dulcia ninja thing.
Yeah. That was sort of my. I have that in quite a few, like in Red Scorpion, I have a sequence, sort of a spiritual training kind of sequence. I really love that kind of. I guess it's very Star Warsian, but it's that trying to put a little bit of a layer in. My favorite movie of all time is Wizard of Oz, and I love it. In fact, there's even a couple of scenes in Power Rangers that remind me directorially, actually, of Wizard of Oz, when all the birds are flying out of the building. It reminded me of the flying monkeys in Wizard of Oz. Yeah. That's cool. I like that. that Wizard of Oz, to me, the reason I love it so much is it's a fantastic story. It has so many elements. It's a great one to study for writing, but it has a really deep theme. It's like this whole thing about that. You have to discover it for yourself. Why did you have to go on this journey? Because she needed to find out for herself. This whole thing of, it's all within us. It's like, you have to journey out to come home and discover that everything is within you. There's so many, there's tons of things in there that are, so I love if I can infuse a little bit of that. So in Red Scorpion, it's like a Dolph Lundgren action movie. If I can infuse a little bit, we had this Bushman and teaching him some of these sort of fundamental, primitive, spiritual things, and with Dulcia doing a little bit of, infuse a little bit of that kind of thing in there, for spread a little bit of good karma.
Because so you had all the stuff about Zordon getting attacked and going into. So did you write a different antagonist then?
It was more it was the same antagonist, but it was just in terms of really his lines, his personality, it was just, but it was embellished from what John Camps had done. It was like,
right,
again,
okay.
He sort of created this. He had this wisecracking kind of guy,
mm-hmm.
And it was like, okay, good, we like that, but we need some better lines now. We need some better things for him to, he's not very active. How can we make him more proactive? How can we make him more, to create more conflict in the story, more problems for the kids, that kind of thing. So that was sort of my job. So
how much knowledge of Power Rangers did you have before you started even pitching, never mind writing the script?
I just watched a bunch of shows, and it's not that, it wasn't that complex. I think it is now, because there's been so many iterations of it. But at that point, it was, pretty simple. The world was pretty simple. So I was just watching a bunch of episodes or writing down things, sort of like traits and that kind of stuff of the characters. One of the things that was interesting with Power Rangers was that they really didn't want to have character flaws. It's difficult to write that too, because in movies it's really about people having flaws and overcome, how they have character arcs, how they change, how they evolve, how the challenges, push them in certain directions. But in Power Rangers, they were like, no, these kids are squeaky clean. They're great kids. We don't want to have them, have fights. We don't want to have them have, this one's got an issue with his parents, or this one has an issue with, anxiety, or this one has, the typical stuff that you do put in movies. So it was hard on that level. It kept the movie at a sort of a bit of a superficial level, which was difficult to write. But I also understood it. It was like it's more of a cartoon. It's more of a comic. It's more of a don't want to get too. I didn't see the latest version of Power Rangers, but I think they go much more deeper into character in the latest movie. They
I think
are
so, but
flawed.
I'm like you. It's confused me with how many it's sort of gone out to.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
think at one point the Red Rangers come back as a Boy Ranger, and that would just confuse me straight out the map.
Yeah,
Like, why
yeah,
are you
yeah.
changing
No,
colors?
yeah, yeah. Yeah, now it's the world is the mythology, they call it mythology in these things. It's like the mythology is so complex, but it's also one of these things. It's because it's kids. It's not like you're doing Lord of the Rings. It's not like
No,
you have to, it's you can't make up stuff and be pretty loose and have
yeah.
fun with it.
There's
It's
a
not
clear sort of simplicity to it. But,
absolutely,
yeah.
yeah.
Because I mean, I watched it back this morning, and the first thing that the film does is it shows you all the Rangers. It shows you Bulk and Skull, so these embedded characters that you've got from the TV show, and then
Right.
it throws them out of a plane while they all go skydiving, and you kind of just get straight into it then. So, did you
Yes.
have any difficulty at all in terms of not really? I don't want to say not developing the characters a little bit, because I think there is a little bit of development as you go through the film, but you essentially had to start from the place where this writer has just finished and then carry it on from there, if that makes sense. Was that difficult at all?
I'm not quite sure what you mean.
So if you imagine, like, the TV series goes for a certain number of episodes, and I
right,
think the film premiered at the end of season 2. So
right.
you had to basically pick up where these characters had stopped at the end of season 2 and then carry them on from there. So it wasn't you had to introduce a character. It was just you had to assume that the audience knew exactly who these people were. Was that difficult to kind
Yes.
of approach in terms of writing?
It wasn't in the sense of, again, because they're pretty they're pretty standard characters.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, okay, this ranger is the sort of more courageous one. This ranger
Yeah.
is the more, it's like they have, this one's the quirkier one. This one, they had basic, little traits. And that was really, it wasn't getting too deep into, again, their families or their dynamics of their relationships and that kind of stuff. They had basic little traits, and it's like, okay, we'll just keep with those and just play with those. And that was actually another thing was I did, and I hope one of the things that I did want to have is that unity. Again, Wizard of Oz is it's this sense of disparate characters coming together to create a family. The lion, the wizard, the scarecrow, Dorothy. And with a lot of my movies, I like that theme too. And so with this too, it's like the idea that they've gone through this journey together, that there is something at the end, that there's a bit more of, whether it's pointed out or not, you get this feeling of, okay, we've got a deeper bond now. And the reason we survived this was because of the unity. We're a unit and we're a team, and again, that's where I would have liked to have had a little bit more of, well, for a moment there, it looks like they're falling apart. That's usually what you do, right? It's like something's okay. Tommy and Kimberly their romance is falling apart. So now they split up, and it's like not until the final scene do they come together again and work it all out. But it's still, I think, and hope that there is a little bit of that sense of again, a bonding and a unity.
Oh, definitely. Yeah, that's the one. I think you've replicated that from the TV show as well, because I think the TV show tried to do that as much as possible.
Yes.
Yeah. I mean, this is just a general kind of interested question on my part, intrigued question from my part. How much did you visit the set? How often did you visit the set?
Now, most movies, I do get to, I would say like half my movies I've been on the set for 3 or 4 days. On this one, actually, it was the most of any, not of any movie, because I directed a movie also, but it was the most of any of the big movies that I did. It was, they flew me, it was in Australia, and they flew me down, and I spent probably a month there. And
all right, okay.
So in pre-production and production, and there was little scenes and lines being written, on the day and in the moment, and which was really fun. It was really fun and really good people. Like really, Brian Spicer was a great guy, and
Yeah.
So yeah, on this one it was quite a bit of time, and then actually on this one too, which is unusual, is when I came back, they gave me an office at 20th Century Fox, and I was continuing to work, tweaking script stuff, looking at dailies, what can you add here, what can you add there. So I got Chris Meledandri sort of involved me in the process a lot more than normal. And I got to come in when Brian was doing his cuts to look at the cuts and discuss, give my notes on, some thoughts on the cuts and that kind of stuff too. So that was fun.
Yeah, because I've heard lots of things in the past of like writers never even stepping foot on a set. It's like once they've done the scripts, that's it, So yeah, I was more intrigued to see how much. Yeah.
Yeah, I got lucky in this one. I definitely got lucky.
Good, sounds good. I had a bit of a look down old IMDb trivia yesterday, which I think some things are true, some things aren't. And there were some interesting things that I pulled out. I was just wondering if you could either elaborate or just say, no, that's total bogus. Dulcia's backstory was scripted but cut from the final film.
Her backstory, there was there was a different actress was playing Dulcia. And there was more of that. There were scenes that were cut. There definitely, excuse me, it wasn't her backstory so much as from what I recall, because it was a long time ago, as much as it was the sort of training aspect of that. And it's a really interesting thing, because it's like when you look at it's like with movies, you want to keep a lot of things going on. You want to have, like in a scene, you want to have 5 different things going on. You've got to, there was a little bit of character development. There's a little bit of a plot thing. There's a little bit of a action adventure thing. There's a bit of a twist. How much can you put all in one scene? So what we were finding was that in the training stuff, it was slowing it down. Like there wasn't enough. Like, and that was, that was a writing flaw. I think it would have worked if, the movies where that does work is there's other character stuff going on at the same time as you're doing the training. There's subterfuge, there's whatever you've got going on. But in this movie, it seemed to sort of just stop. And so we ended up cutting out a fair bit of that. And then with Dulcia, it was shortened or changed a little bit, because we had one actress that just, it was a thing of, she was good, and in fact, she's a great actress, but she was a little too cerebral. She's a little too, like, we needed that sort of cartoon pop, rah superhero kind of character. And so they brought somebody else in, and then with bringing somebody else in, we rewrote a little bit for her to adapt to her sort of letting her voice and bringing her, making her a bit more playful, a bit more, because she was, the Dulcia we had before was a little too serious, a little too somber.
Because there's a couple of things that happen in the film where I think at one point Ivanus says, "Oh no, I don't like Zordon," and then Zordon says, "You need to go and see Dulcia," and then Dulcia says, "Ivanus is back." So they all know each other, and you drop those things in of understanding that there's a relationship between these that have happened before. But I would imagine that in a 2-hour film, it would have been developed and sort of there would have been maybe even scenes with them together. But surely in a film aimed at kids, you're not touching anywhere near past 90 minutes, because otherwise it's not going to go well. Yeah. Another one from the trivia was the original scripted fight between the Power Rangers and the Tengus, which were Ivanus's flying birds, was heavily torn down for the film. Is that true?
Heavily torn down. What is torn down?
So, toned down.
Toned down. I don't remember that, but I wouldn't be surprised at all. We probably. I think that's probably very common with a family movie, where it's like you, and it's also interesting. Like, okay, like what would pass today compared to back then.
I was wondering if that was too much of your Red Scorpion getting into your Power Rangers script.
Exactly. It's that, and also, you do want to make it as scary as possible and without scaring the kids, right? So it's like, it is that thing, okay, oh no, this, we've shot it, but it's way too wimpy. It's like, this isn't scary at all. The kids are going to laugh at this. So you don't want to go in that direction. So I think that is a common thing, and it's in the cutting, it's like, okay, let's go a little bit further here. Let's have a little bit more blood. Let's have a little bit more, and then let's check. Okay, yeah, no, definitely this is too much. Let's cut that out. Cut that out. Okay, that's good. That's still scary, but it's not gonna, Johnny's not gonna have nightmares.
Yeah,
so
let's not do that.
That was a whole interesting thing too going on then, because there was a huge controversy around violence with the Power Rangers, and that was a tough thing to sort of work around, because the TV show, a lot of parents were against it because of the fighting, and people would ask me like, how do you feel about that? How do you feel? And I was just like, well, look at today's movies. I grew up watching Batman. It's like, I grew up watching if there's no fight, it's like, really? So Star Wars, okay, we got to get rid of Star Wars then, because we got to get rid of Lord of the Rings. We got to get rid of pretty much anything if you don't have fighting. That's that's part of the deal. So it kind of I found it kind of and on the other hand, it was like, okay, how much, like exactly what you're talking about with the scene, how much you see, how much is inferred, how much that I get, and so playing with the kind of fighting that they're doing, but it was so like, watching the TV show especially, it was so silly, it was so lighthearted and so fantastical, and sparks flying and whoosh and whoosh. It was more gymnastics than it was fighting. It was just
the amount of jump kicks that I watched this morning rewatching that film.
Yeah, we got to come up with some new kicks here. This is not working here. But it's the violence thing was, to me, I didn't have a problem with that, but a lot of people did. A lot of.
Because I find that interesting, because I was born in 1990. And I remember watching Power Rangers when I was, 5, maybe younger. So I would have been 5 when the film came out. And I don't think my parents ever had an issue with it, because it's always been, even now, my dad still mentions, oh, you used to watch Power Rangers when you were a kid, and, things like that. But then I always had this thing where if I watched a film, and I think even Disney films and things like that, I always knew that a film was about to end if there was just a fight, or if something like that had just happened. Because if you think of things like Lion King, ends after Simba and Scar have a fight. So there's always violence. There's always some kind of element in it. But I feel like some people just pick one thing that they think is the biggest reason as to why something's happening, and then lay into it a little bit. Yeah, it's bizarre. Absolutely bizarre.
Yeah. That's great. So you grew up watching Power Rangers. That's funny.
No, I did. Great. Yeah. It was me and my wife, actually, similar age, grew up watching it. And my daughter came back before, so she's only 5. And I said, oh, look at this that I watched today. And she went, what is this? Are they from space? I was like, I should educate you. I should sit down.
Okay. Nutty stuff is what's going on here. Yeah, my kids watched it. I've got like a 13-year-old and a 15-year-old. They watched like 3/4 of it once, and they was like, yeah, okay, that's enough.
Well, we were talking about teaching before, and I often use teaching to get across things that I like, or put scenes in from films that I just like to watch, so that it makes me, happier. And a couple of years ago, the entire exam was all about superhero films, and I was reading up about the kind of direction to teachers, and they say, oh, we need you to pick 4 films that are going to be focus films, but they need to sort of establish and illustrate a breadth of the genre. So I went from, I think it was Captain America Civil War was the more recent one at the time, The Dark Knight, X-Men, and I was like, I need to find another one that's earlier, and I went, Power Rangers. So I showed at the time,
that's great,
15, 16-year-olds Power Rangers, and they're like, sir, what is this? Like, said, you don't know you're born, just watch it. I still use a clip now of the scene where they're all stood around the campfire and they're about to morph. They're all wearing the ninja gear, and I use it for color because it's just a case of like, what do you think the colors represent to these characters? You know,
Oh,
what
great. Yeah.
pink, yellow, and all that kind of stuff. So, yeah, that's a good taster one.
That's a funny thing, isn't it? Like when I directed a movie and I was like dealing with costume, and it was just like, okay, wow, the amount of detail and like directors like Ridley Scott, that everything that they have their hand on every single little thing that goes into it, and it's like, but yeah, the amount of detail and knowledge and forethought in terms of, okay, I've got to figure out exactly what every character is wearing every day, and the colors of that goes, this color means with that, and it's like, just put a shirt on them. It's like, wow. But it was fun too, because it was like, what I would do with a lot as a director was I'd give my real overall sense of what I want from a character, and then really depend on let the costumer do their thing, because it's also one of these things that the more you give them, the more power you give them, the more fun they have, the more they're into it, the more they're invested, and they're, instead of being dictated to, they're like, awesome, I get to really show my stuff here. It's like same thing with a DP. Although with photography, with director photography, I found myself, I was really into planning all the shots was really for me. Like I know there are directors that are more into the acting and that kind of stuff, and let the how you frame a scene, all that kind of stuff is let the DP do it. But for me, it was like, okay, no, I really want control over how everything's going to be cut together. Every single scene, it's like I had it mapped out, drawn out, all that kind of stuff.
Well, no, we've meticulously analyzed costumes, colors, props in the backgrounds of things, props that people are carrying. For things like Skyfall is one of the films that we do. So anything to do with James Bond wearing this particular type of suit, or because it's Skyfall, it's things like throwing back to the Aston Martin and the Walther PPK gun and things like that. So that just gets analyzed and analyzed and analyzed. And in an exam, actually, the students would get a question along the lines of, discuss the costume of this character in one scene from your film. So you've got to pick something good. Don't just say that, they're wearing a t-shirt, because that's not going to get you anything. You need to develop it a little bit. Tell me more. Ferris Bueller is another one, actually, that's quite good for that. Props, one? Especially Ferris Bueller.
Oh, really? Yeah. Oh, that's funny. Yeah.
Because we talk a lot about the economic boom of the 80s. So the fact that he wakes up and he's got all these different things in his room, but he's complaining that he doesn't have a car and that he's got a computer and things like that. Yeah. So that's our analysis and our analysis lessons that the kids, once they click on something, they'll stay with it. And that's the thing then. But like we did a little bit of a thing. I showed them a little clip of the woman in the red dress, like never trust a woman in a red dress.
Right.
And I'd forgotten about it. I'd forgotten about showing it to him, and we watched a film that's not on the exam, I think, just before we finished. And a lot of them just went, "She's wearing a red dress. Can't trust her. She's bad. She's the bad guy. We're not going to do that."
Yeah.
So as I mentioned before, the students have to do a short screenplay based on a feature film, but it's 5 minutes. So it's either the opening scene or a scene that creates excitement. With that in mind, what advice could you give to the students in terms of how to create excitement in 5 minutes or 5 pages?
So I guess, I could tell you a little bit about my process in terms of, first of all, in terms of how I come up with ideas for movies.
Yeah, that'd be helpful.
What I do is I go on to, there's a site called, what's it called? I'll remember the name. But basically it tells you all the movies all the scripts that are selling. And there's other sites, actually, there's quite a few sites like this nowadays. And I'll go through, when I'm in a brainstorming mode, I'll spend like a week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks going through the log lines of movies. So it's like
Mm-hmm.
the 1, 2, 3 line summaries of the movies. And what it does is it gets me going. I'm like thinking, so this one, the dog turns into a wizard, and then this one, this happens, and then this one, it's the action. And gradually, it's this meets that meets this. It's all these things. Another way of doing it actually was the way I did it years ago was I took you have these books that have encapsulate all of the movies. It's like Leonard Maltin's reviews of all the movies or whatever.
Yeah.
So in there again, same. There's sometimes in those, at least back in the day, they had the little log lines, and so I'd flip through those, and it's just be like, okay, this idea, and write literally hundreds of ideas. And gradually, once in a while, an idea will hit you, and it's just like, oh, man, yeah, that's a good one. I was doing it recently, and it was one of the ideas. It was the Housewives of Transylvania. So it's like the idea of doing, the Housewives of Beverly Hills or Housewives whatever, but it's Frankenstein's, wife, and Dracula's wife, and the Mummy's wife, and the Ghost's wife. And there was one of those, okay, yeah, that's, to me, it's like, okay, I would like to write that. That's going to be fun. It's like,
Yeah.
that kind of thing. But so anyway, so I do that. Actually, years ago, I sold a script called Drake Diamond, and this is the same thing. It was basically, I'm really into The Exorcist, love the movie.
Mm-hmm.
And going this, then I was thinking, well, what about twisting it as a comedy? Has anyone done a comedy about an exorcist? And so then I came up with this idea called Drake Diamond Exorcist for Hire. It was sort of Ghostbusters, but instead of ghosts, it's like, dealing with demons.
Yeah.
And I wrote that, and then this is back in the day again. Now this is still possible, but it's much harder to do. But back in the day of spec scripts, the bidding wars, all kind of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So this was a bidding war between Warner Brothers and Disney, and Warner Brothers won. And but it was one of those scripts that went into what they call development hell, which I'm sure you're familiar with.
Yes.
And it got rewritten, and then it got optioned by the guys that did Ghostbusters, and rewritten again, and then it got optioned by somebody else and rewritten again, and then finally just sort of died away. But it's still one of those ideas that I don't think it's been done yet. I don't think anyone's done a really good comedy about an exorcist, so who knows. But anyway, so that's, I think of, I spent a lot of time just coming up with a lot of concepts, and this meets that. So it's bringing, getting stimulated by other things and other ideas. People do it with magazine articles, they do it with news articles, they do it with, so it's getting yourself in that, revved up in that place where you're kind of pumped, and you've got all the synapses are firing, and not just going with, okay, this is an idea, good, I'm done. It's like, no, keep pushing, keep trying, and then the ones that sort of stick after a while, it's like this idea keeps coming back to me. I keep laughing at this one, or I keep going, yeah, it is scary. That's a scary one. Those are the ones that you sort of know that you want to work with. So I think that's what I guess I would say with this is in terms of coming up with an opening is, finding, again, coming up with a lot of ideas for the opening and different ways of doing something, and then, okay, now start narrowing it down. What's really works here? What's the one that gets me the most excited? What's the one that is going to give me the most information? In the opening of a movie, it's a lot about giving information about the main character. It's about setting up the place. It's about setting up the antagonist. It's about if you can, again, that's that thing of how much stuff can you fit in one scene without making it feel like you don't want to make it feel like it's a really busy scene. You're going, oh my God, what's going on here? There's so much stuff. It's got to be simplistic in a way, because you just want to entertain the person, or you want to scare the person if it's a horror, or you want to make them laugh if it's a comedy. But the cleverness is doing it at the same time that you're making them laugh, that laugh is giving them a bunch of information that is going to pay off later in the movie or whatever. Is going to identify a key piece of who they are, that kind of thing. I
Yeah.
think for me, that thing of thinking of interesting locations, it's like, again, everything's been done, but okay, how can I do a little twist on it? And interesting, physical things to do. I got the job about 5 years ago writing. We have in Canada one Canadian superhero called Captain Canuck, and
Okay.
so I got the job writing the screenplay for it, and was really trying to think, okay, we're going to shoot it in Vancouver. What's here that's unique to Vancouver that would be, be kind of entertaining in a superhero movie for kids? And the thing that I came up with was where I live, actually in North Vancouver, mountain biking is huge, and it's just, when I watch videos of mountain biking, like the extreme mountain biking, it's just unbelievable. And I don't know, it might have been done by now, but have you seen like a great mountain biking chase sequence?
No, I don't think
With
I have.
because I think that would just make it an amazing chase sequence.
Yeah.
So it's like that. And or another one was this was just sort of a setup scene, but it was there's a place up nearby here where they go kiteboarding, and that's just a beautiful thing to watch. And it was just it was a character, more of a character moment, setting up this our character, our hero is a very physical, active guy, and that kind of stuff. And it was also a moment where something happens to him and he accidentally crashes into another kiteboarder. But it's just that thing again, like, wow, it's the kind of thing that you go, okay, what would make the director want to direct this? It's like,
Yeah.
oh yeah, this would be fun. We got the camera attached to the top of the sail. We got the camera underwater. I want to get an underwater shot here. I've got the drone shot coming in on the zoom as he goes wishes right past us. It's like, so coming up with those kinds of things that just visually excite you, and that would potentially excite a director.
Yeah.
Or direct it yourself.
Yeah. Well, yeah. I suppose the final question to think about is, if you were sat down and you were about to write your next script, in the first 5 minutes, how would you establish a character?
Okay, so I'm working on something right now. So what my first thinking would be in terms of, okay, what's an exciting opening, and then in that, how can I again, at the same time you're doing this, how can I, the way he reacts to this, if it's an action sequence, the way he reacts to this, the way he deals with it is telling me something about, like even what I just said with the parasailing thing, or what do you call that thing? It's like the way, I guess it's like one of the things I think a really good word is skill set. I think giving characters, always be thinking in terms of what is a character's skill set, and how will it pay off in the movie. We like to see at the beginning of movies, something like, if it's a cop, it's like often you'll see in a series, it's like he'll do something really freaking smart. It's just, you immediately set up, okay, this guy knows his stuff. We like that. It's like, okay, cool. We like a character that's smart. We like a character that's clever. We like it, and it also makes us go, oh, I didn't think of that. That's kind of interesting. So thinking of clever ways to set up a skill set for your, if they're a superhero, then what is the skill set that they have, or if they're a flawed character, what is, actually that's actually said something different, but yeah, so I think that would be a thing I would be thinking about. Likability, I'd be thinking about, like, right away, is like, if this is a main character, is there a way that I can introduce this character in such a fashion that I'm immediately rooting for them. They do something, they, the bad version being that they help some kid, who's on the street, or some lady across the street or whatever. You don't do that, but you do something where it's kind of like, oh, that was quite kind. And it's good. It feels, it's an amazing thing still for me watching movies, when I see, I get moved by characters that do something really kind. It's like,
okay.
and so you like that person. Or conversely, if it's an antagonist, they do something that's really deliciously nasty. So you're doing that really quickly. And then also just setting up, really thinking in terms of just setting up their world in visually as simple a way as you can. So, how they dress, how they talk, what's their socioeconomic, it's like, you don't want to start a movie. Most times, so many movies nowadays, they start with, waking up in bed, and it's a really easy way to do it because you can set up so much, but you have to be really careful with that. It's still done by some of the greatest filmmakers of all time, still do that. But I think if you can find other ways to start the day, other than waking up in bed when the alarm goes off, and then you see the posters on the wall, and you see what she dresses in, and you see, then argues with mom and dad and that kind of stuff. It's like, okay, how can I do that? If you are going to do that, then how can I do it a little bit different? So this house is, she's sleeping in a tree fort. I don't know, whatever. It's just something. What's different here that's going to make me go, oh, that's kind of interesting. That's kind of catchy.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think those are the main things. It's sort of just getting a sense of the person, and within the first sort of 10 minutes anyways, the sense of their objective. What's the, what is it that's missing in their life and that they're going after? What do they want to achieve? What will fulfill them? Setting up a lack, that there's something missing, there's something broken, and or just that there's an ambition that they have, it's like, and an ambition again that you root for. Like, it's kind of like, oh, that's a commendable ambition. Something, it's like I'm behind that guy. I want to see him.
Yeah, the reason why, it's a cliche and it's an awful one. The reason why we want to keep watching, because they have something to strive for, and we can root for them, and they can go and get what it is that they desire.
Yeah, and it's so funny because it's like you say all these things, and it's, oh well, okay, so that's I got it. It's like, I've got all that in my thing, so how come I can't sell this? It's like, and that's the trick, is that it's so, and it takes a lot of writing and a lot of time to get to that place where it starts to really flow. And what's great about watching, obviously you guys, your class watches movies, is watching that and really looking at why that is a good movie. Like, why is that in 5 minutes? Look at how much they've accomplished in 5 minutes, and why. It's like, okay, so you can just learn so much. But it's a trick. It's a deceptively. It's a kind of business, and it's how I got into it too. It was like, I thought the very first thing I wrote was brilliant, but it was not brilliant. And now there was the second thing, and now there was the third thing. It was like, it's deceptive, because you think, you watch the movies, I'm learning all this stuff, now I should be able to do it. But it's like, no, it's much more than that. And practice makes perfect. But even that, it's kind of a thing of just constantly challenging yourself to really break the rules. It's like, find the, know the rules to break the rules, kind of thing.
Yeah.
Don't go. I don't recommend that with young writers, creating something like a whole new style of writing. But you need to use these, structural things that all these things we've talked about. But then how can you use them and give us something fresh? How can you? That's the sign of a good writer. Yeah. Do you write also?
I did when I was in university. I wrote a couple. I wrote a short film called Hunter's Point, which I was a big I really enjoyed writing it, and I really kind of
Right.
I didn't really do anything with it though, so it's kind of just mine, and it's on my laptop and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But every now and again, I get the thought of, should I get back into it? Should I write something again?
Yeah.
And then work gets in the way, and everything else gets in the way. So
Kids. Yeah. Yeah.
yeah. So to be honest, I think I am. There's a little niggling inside me. It's been about 10 years since I left university, so probably
Yeah.
10 years since the last time I wrote something.
Yeah.
But there's a little something that's making me go, let's dust it off a little bit. Let's see what we can do.
Yeah. Good.
Yeah. So because I've got a couple ideas that I've been kicking around and stuff, and trying to change different things too. But hopefully, yeah, I'm gonna write something soon.
And it really is hard. It is that thing of, when I, with kids especially, teaching kids all that kind of stuff. Ideally, just being able to get away for like 3 or 4 days or whatever, somewhere where you can just go for it.
Yeah.
Have this sort of time, like, hour here, hour there, to structure some stuff. But then you've got, okay, now I've got, and now you just want to have that.
Now just go, yeah.
The stop-start thing is hard to do, isn't it? Like I find it's like, okay, work for an hour, you're getting into the guts of it, and it's like, okay, I'm revved up, and it's like, okay, my hour is up. It's like, okay, no. It'd be great if you get 3 or 4 days away and just like, really sink your teeth into it.
Yeah, that would be. But again, it's that I was talking to someone today about finding time to do things, and they said, but you can never find time. You just have to do it, and then if it works, it becomes part of your routine then. So hopefully, I'll embed it somewhere.
I like that advice. Yeah. It's true. It's easier said than done, but there's some truth to it too, right? It's like,
that's it, isn't it? Yeah. So
you look at Spielberg and you go, how the hell does he do all of that? It's like, how does he do it? It's like,
I thought this. I was watching. There was a trailer that popped up when we were in the cinema the other day for a new Disney film, and it just said featuring the songs of Lin-Manuel Miranda. And I thought, how has he even got the time? Like, what's he doing?
Yeah. Another guy. It's just like, it's like they're everywhere. These certain people, right? What's the guy? The horror movie with the black guy that goes to.
Oh, Jordan Peele.
Jordan Peele, same thing. I see him like on this and that. That's like, oh my god. And then I feel guilty and say, okay, I gotta get. Okay, enough talking. We got to get back to work.
Look at what these guys are doing. That's good. Exactly. Perfect. It's really helpful. Thank you very much.
Pleasure.
Yeah, thank you very much for your time. It's been absolutely fantastic. Just unpicking, for me, little things about Power Rangers, and then going even deeper and talking about screenwriting and things like that, which hopefully is going to be useful for the students as well that listen. So yeah, thank you very much.
Yeah.